Tea time with Bodyslams.
Tall John, Big John,
honest with you,
Latin John,
to be honest
Latin
with you,
heartthrob John,
Wait a minute,
Latin sex machine John.
pretty much I am the new age shockmaster. That's what I am.
Jump into my mouth, Brian. I'll eat you. He did bite him in the match. The Raging Crow, Justin Garcia. Jonathan Chavez. V. John Allen. Tea time with Bodyslams. A refined look at grappling.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's the tea time with Bodyslams. You guys held your hands enough. You gave us your energy. We thank you, because now John Allen is back, and we didn't let Hitler win.
What?
Yeah, you didn't watch the last episode, did you?
I watched the last episode. I clearly missed something about Hitler, though, so there, I apologize.
Don't.
So it's Hitler, Al-Qaeda, and the Legion of Doom versus John Allen's Cool Guy Show and the Justice Society of Antarctica and El Salvadorian Buddha.
Oh, they don't have
Alright.
a prayer. They're going down.
But yeah,
We're pushing this for Survivor Series.
not SummerSlam.
No.
But yeah, we it's been a while since we had John Allen back on the show, so it's great now that we're back to a 3T time. It's normal again.
Yes,
it's
to
reunited.
quote Whiplash from Iron Man 2, good to be back.
Good to be back.
Yeah, to quote Drew McIntyre, reunited and it feels so good. Hopefully we don't all get fired.
Oh. Anyway,
Drew.
so today is kind of an offshoot episode. We're going to talk about a few things, a little bit of interesting news that's tucked in, and also we're going to talk about a new show that's going to be coming up in a short amount of time that you guys totally need to get your asses down to the Diego to go see.
Yes, indeed. If you're in the area, get your asses up, get your homeboys, get some beers, and watch some wrestling.
Gonna be a fun
Called
time.
For the Gold.
I almost
About
made it like
the
a
FU
McDonald's
dubs.
joke when you mentioned the Drew McIntyre thing. Like, to quote Drew McIntyre, no, I better not have fries with that right now.
Oh.
No. You got to quote him properly. He's down at Home
I've been
Depot.
wondering. I gotta wonder, like, if they get. I don't think they get unemployment or anything like that because it's, as an independent contractor, it's like you're paid per show. I don't know, because you're not like on a regular sort of paycheck sort of thing. I don't know. That's interesting.
And even if they did get unemployment, like, I think everyone with TNA probably would have quit at that point.
Oh yeah,
I'd
it's like
rather
I'm
just
making
get
the same thing. I
unemployment.
just get to stay home. Why not?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, fuck this show.
Like, shit, it's another 45-minute Bischoff promo. Fuck it, I'll just stay home.
Right.
Speaking of TNA, let's actually talk about that.
Okay.
What's the news today, John? What's the news?
Which John?
You, John. Wait, I didn't introduce you.
No,
sex
you
machine.
didn't, you shitbag.
Whatever.
Introduce us properly. We have the comedic gold genius, the man with the plan, the John Allen back on the show. Much.
Hola.
Clap for it. Clap for
Hello
El Presidente,
to all our
damn it.
listeners. I love you all.
We love. Much love.
We have the rock god, the Raging Crow, Justin Garcia. You know, the Paul Heyman fetishizing the Chris Benoit.
If you're gonna name the gimmick, at least don't botch it when you do it.
Well, I
Jesus
was
Christ.
making you look good in front of the people until I tell them what you really are.
Okay.
And then you have me, moi, el único, the Latin sex machine, Jonathan Chavez.
Boo.
Well, fuck you, John Allen. At least John Allen took off his shirt.
Let's go, Chavez. Chavez sucks.
Yeah, I'm down with that shit. But let's start the ball rolling with some news. What's up with TNA?
Some news following TNA. Go ahead, John.
Well, they might very well be Kaputski, speaking in scientific terms.
Well, you know what? It's
the most scientific I've ever heard.
It's pretty scientific, but you know what? It's not like this is really. It's news that Spike finally just said, you guys have X amount of time to get on another network because we're done. But their ratings were doing so bad anyway that it was only a matter of time. I remember I was looking at like the TV ratings that they were bringing in with my friend, and it turns out that an 8 o'clock weekday, like 8 a.m. weekday spot of SpongeBob was bringing in better draw than they were. Now, what that means is when the kids are in school at 8 a.m., toddlers and middle-aged parents who are with their toddlers are watching more television than anyone ever watched TNA.
God,
That's fucked.
Yeah, I mean, what were, have you, it sounds like you looked into this, like, what kind of numbers were they pulling in the more recent weeks? Were they at least drawing a 1.0?
No, they weren't even whole numbers.
Man.
Yeah, they weren't in the ones. They were actually like in
They were like point blank.
I think the worst they ever did, they drew in a 0.3.
Probably.
Oh, jeez. Because I was just reading, I was just reading up, WrestleCrap just put up this head-to-head thing. You remember when they were trying to compete with WWE on Monday nights?
Yeah.
Do I ever?
Well, at the height of that, I think because they had so much hype going in, that the first week they tried it, they drew, I think, a 1.4, which is probably their highest one ever, and WWE probably did like a 3.5 that night. So, and then as the hype kind of died down a bit, it gradually tapered off closer to like 1.0 or 0.8. It usually hovered somewhere around there. So that's why I was curious, because I'd heard that from a quality of show standpoint, they were kind of on something of an upswing again. But
yeah, that was a big thing. A lot of people who were covering their shows were actually saying, the quality of wrestling is improving, the quality of matches are improving, the quality of storylines, while still questionable, we're still improving. It's a very much a case of too little, too late.
Yeah,
but in this case, like, and even still in this case, like, their ratings still weren't anything to brag about.
No.
They still were failing to hit whole numbers half the time.
I mean, SmackDown averages at least like a high 2 on a bad day.
And SmackDown's not that much to talk about these days either.
No, SmackDown's no longer, the show anymore.
Yeah,
It's
no,
usually
we're years past the whole 8.0 ratings that like WWE was getting at the height of their second boom period. But I don't know, man. If they were at least pulling a 1.0 or at least hovering around there, that's not a bad number. It's a third of what WWE's pulling in, but in that same breath, compare that to like, I mean, what were the numbers for like a SpongeBob show you were talking about?
Oh, it was, God, if I recall correctly, it was like at least 0.2 higher or 0.3 higher. So
you're saying that SpongeBob just reruns was usually somewhere around like a 1.2 or 1.3?
If TNA was hitting like a 0.8, if they were hitting that.
Yeah, pretty much.
Still, I mean, that's still close to 1 million people, and I'd imagine that the costs for their production, since they were cutting out some of the bigger names like Sting, Hogan, and Bischoff, their production costs, were probably considerably lower now that they were going back to basics and focusing a little bit more on the homegrown talent.
They were trying to, but like I said earlier, it's too little, too late. You focus on these big names, you throw out these extravagant contracts, and then you try and kind of cut the pay of your homegrown talent. That's one of the reasons why AJ Styles left. He just wasn't happy with the money he was making there anymore. He wasn't also happy with the way the company was going.
No,
belly up.
But here's there's a number of details on this that makes it such an interesting story. One is that the rumor is that the Vince Russo factor and how he's being used as a scapegoat by one side or the other. One rumor is saying that they were very close to inking a deal, Spike and TNA, to continue forward. TNA is saying that once Spike TV found out that Vince Russo was still involved with the creative side of things, that's what kiboshed the deal, attempting to use him as a scapegoat, or to, and then on the other side of things, but then it's like, who's saying what? If that's true, I mean, that's kind of, I don't know if that's the smartest thing on Spike's part to cancel everything just because Russo's involved. So it leads many to believe that TNA is lying and trying to just lump the blame on somebody else rather than taking responsibility for the quality of their product for the last year or so. What do you guys think on that?
I think I want to say that I don't think Spike pays enough attention to the goings on in terms of creative and stuff to that they would think Vince Russo would be like the biggest negative factor. Mm-hmm. I honestly just think they're not bringing in as much money as Spike needs, and that's all it is. It's just a numbers game, really. And Vince Russo or not, it really didn't make a difference. Even if they didn't have him, I doubt Spike would have changed their decision either way.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, back when TNA, like before it hit their true dark ages, TNA was holding up high ones, low twos. They were getting really good numbers. They were getting SmackDown numbers. And that's why Spike wanted to keep them around. Then next thing you know, they start changing things internally, thinking like, okay, well, now we're ready to compete with the juggernaut that is WWE, and they got smashed down for it.
It was the worst decision they could have ever made.
And they were treading water ever since, kind of just falling their own asses. Yeah, I do believe that they're trying to put the blame on Vince Russo. While he's not completely blameless, you can't put all the blame on him. Vince Russo didn't kill WCW. WCW killed itself. Same thing with TNA.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
Well, I mean, okay. I don't know. That whole story just has a fishy quality about it. And I would also kind of argue that, I don't know, another argument that was thrown out there that I think has some weight to it is that, for example, I mean, we're all kind of nerds, so you probably heard about the whole thing with the Avatar sequel, Korra.
Yeah.
And how that got switched from being, hey, they're not going to have it televised anymore due to low ratings. It's still going to continue, but it'll just be on online and streaming networks. And the fans are saying, of that, they're like, hey, it's not a bad show. In fact, it's a great show. You're just not advertising it. So what do you expect as far as numbers wise? I can speak from personal experience that as a promoter for a show, that you can have an amazing night of quality, but if it's not advertised and if people don't know about it, it's a tree falling in the woods. So
it's
the argument out there,
basically ECW.
Yeah, so to pull things back around to the TNA stuff, there's a lot of people arguing that some would say that TNA advertised Spike more than Spike advertised TNA. Would you guys agree with that or not?
I would agree with that because
I would say it's 50-50.
When you see later episodes of TNA, they would talk about, well, catch this show on Spike, catch this on Spike. They would have the banners at the bottom of the screen saying, Mansers or 1,000 Ways to Die or some damn Spike program is coming up next, or you can catch it on Tuesdays at this time. They would always have that. Mm-hmm. Now, when you turn on Spike TV, I honestly can't really remember the last time I really saw TNA.
Right.
I saw one like a couple months back. One.
Yeah, I can't remember how, because, well, let's be honest here. It's not like I'm fishing around looking for TNA.
Right.
But I have seen a couple commercials for TNA, but I would probably say, yeah, you may be right. That may have you may have something there. I will say I doubt they got nearly as raw of a deal as Paul Heyman and ECW got.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a little bit more fair to say, but I'm just going to go out and say I think TNA's biggest problem, aside from whatever deal they had with their network, was the fact that they were trying to copy formulas that kind of worked 20 years ago. Their biggest thing, I will say, is them trying to copy WCW. They brought in Bischoff, they brought in Russo, they brought in Jarrett, they brought in Hogan, they brought in Sting. It was pretty much like it worked for WCW and they managed to compete with WWE. Fair enough. But the one thing I think that they forgot to keep in mind was that WCW folded. Hard.
And more to the point, I mean, I get it. You want to bring in names that are a draw. Like when I talk to people about like Fans United, sometimes we can sell people just in a basic conversation. If I'm talking to people about the show and we mention some of the names that we have are regular talent, not everybody knows about them yet. If you're just a very, very casual fan, it's like, okay, there's a wrestling show going on. That's cool. But you mentioned that we've been endorsed by RVD, Godfather, Brian Kendrick, and their eyes light up. They're like, oh, okay, now we've added credibility. Now I'm interested. You guys are legit. So it's the same thing. They're trying to bring in names that people already know and piggyback that fan base and success. I don't know. It doesn't look like it always worked. Like when you look at some of the people that jumped ship, like Christian Cage and Kurt Angle and stuff like that, it didn't really spike the ratings in the way that they would have liked. I mean, sure, they brought developed characters and a great work rate to the table, but as far as a draw goes, again, if a tree falls in the woods, it just, I don't know, it wasn't really being promoted in the way it should be, or when they did manage to get people watching, because of lack of continuity on storylines or being booked in a very southern way, people would then tune out.
Backstage politics as well. Backstage politics are fucking terrible at TNA.
Give an example of that, because that's kind of a vague term.
Oh God, anything that let's see, the Carters.
Yeah.
Let's just have a moment on the Carters themselves. It's pretty much a standard that everyone, a lot of wrestlers have gone by, saying that working for Dixie is impossible. You know, and she's very much her way about things. And you know, normally that's totally fine. I mean, Vince McMahon has things, you know, obviously it's my way and that's just the way it's going to be. But when you're working under someone who is very rigid about about the way they want things on their show, and also you're not getting paid on a regular basis, and what you are getting paid isn't worth the work rate that you're putting in, it seems to me like the company was absolutely skeevy. Like, I forget, who was the wrestler, John, that we were talking about, who works at Walmart now, and he said he got paid, was it more on time and more than he ever got paid at TNA?
Oh, I don't know who you'd be talking about on that one. I know, like, Shane Douglas, who, you know, worked TNA a couple of times over the years. He ended up becoming a manager at, like, a Target. But yeah, I'm not really sure who you're quoting on that one.
Yeah,
but I mean, that's very true. There was all kinds of stories out there of people who were working for TNA that were approved for food stamps, and I know that in California, it's that hovers somewhere around. You have to be making less than like $1,180 a month. I don't know what it is in Florida, but
I can't imagine what it would be in Florida.
No,
Lord knows. It's the way of it, you know. It's you hear these things and you read it on the dirt sheets. What was the damn story I learned? The reason why there was no more World X Cups, you know, those amazing World X Cups where they would bring in high flyers from all over the world, Canada, Mexico, Europe, Japan, and they would bring in these amazing workers and they would put on amazing shows. Apparently, one of the reasons why it was on the kibosh for so long, why it took them, I want to say, about a 5-year gap to bring it back, because I believe it was a bi-year, like they brought it over every 2 years or so, was because Dixie felt that one of the Mexican workers disrespected her or something like that. And, you know, it's
was that the dude who hit on her?
Yeah, he slipped her
because
room
he didn't
key.
know who she was.
Pretty much. It's one of those things where you hear all these stories, you don't know if half of them are true, but you hear enough of them and you assume that there is truth to this, because nobody would start this many bad rumors without at least one good reason.
You know, there's one thing, and most of what you're saying right now is hearsay and rumors, and I'm sure there's at least some truth behind them. But what I try to focus on is, like, what is fact. And as far as, like, things that Dixie did that either hurt or helped morale, one thing that I remember that caused a huge stink is shortly before the arrival of Hogan and Bischoff and bringing in a bunch of other, like, WCW retreads and such. This would have been, I think, their version of the Monday Night Wars, which lasted like 5 weeks. That was somewhere around January 2010. So maybe this would be late 2009.
Yeah.
They had a thing.
Yeah.
They had a thing which served absolutely no purpose to be televised, and frankly, if I was on the roster, I'd be insulted, where they opened the show with like a backstage meeting with Dixie saying that the direction, the whole roster was there, with Dixie saying that, hey, things were going to change, and if you don't like it, now is the time to get out, you know? And I just remember, like, what the hell? What a weird way to just... I don't get it. Like, was she trying to put herself over? And if so, why put the focus on her? Because she wasn't an on-screen character at the time playing a heel. It was just such a weird thing to do, and I'm certain that it didn't help morale at all. Little things like that. So that's something that we know for a fact happened. And yeah,
or I forget which time period there was a show I was watching. I think it was when they finally they started really. I don't know if this was pre or post Monday Night. I don't even want to call it a war competition, but I remember who was it? Was it Spoonie that was talking about this, Jonathan? Where
Samoa Joe got kidnapped.
No, not that. It was the episode that they were doing where it was pretty much like if it was a 3-hour show, 20 minutes of actual matches, the rest of it was promo cutting, and then there was promo cutting in between matches. Like it was a women's match that was going on, and while you're watching the match, and then it cuts like to an interview that took like 3 minutes. Or like a minute or two, and you're completely taken away from this match. Bischoff or Hogan or somebody, or maybe Jarrett, I think.
This is post. So
this is after the Monday Night skirmish.
Slap fight.
The Monday Night. Well, no, it's not even a fight really, because WWE was like, wait, we were fighting? I forgot.
Okay, so
yeah, like that's got to be damaging to the team's morale. Just like to know that. You've got like this, we got this 3-hour slot and it's going to be awesome. We get to really show off more talent, putting in a lot of more like the X Division guys and stuff like that. And the WCW retracts are just like, hey, we're going to stand here and talk to you guys for like an hour, and shit like that. It's little things like that really pissed me off about fucking TNA.
Yeah,
and
I remember. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, even go back to the days before people really even knew who Dixie Carter was. What was just the Jeff Jarrett show. I mean, that's what made me tune out and really not give it a chance for a long time because early 2000s, I mean, God, they've about 12 years roughly they've kind of been around. I'm going back to the days when they didn't even have a network deal. They were just doing pay-per-views for like $10 every now and again.
Yeah, I remember those
I remember thinking, I just remember tuning out because around that time, Triple H was being like the wicked bitch of the world title over in WWE. And then as bad as that was, on the other side of the coin, you had Jeff Jarrett just obnoxiously putting himself over constantly. I never, with all due respect, I never found Jarrett that interesting of a character. It just kind of didn't make, kind of like how you don't really know what Cena's gimmick is, where he's a Marine, but he's a rapper, but he doesn't rap. It was kind of like, here was Jarrett coming out, who was always kind of mid-card, and still doing the guitar thing, yet he hadn't played the Double J thing in so long, and just would not relinquish that darn title. And it was like, I remember the first time they tried bringing ECW guys in, he was talking about like putting himself over all of them in one night, and they all kind of said, forget this. So it's a shame that the problems they're having now, it goes back to what we said earlier. Like finally things were kind of on a creative upswing where they were kind of going back to basics, even trying to bring back the 6-sided ring and stuff like that. But I mean, you look back at some of the just really bad storylines and creative decisions back in the day, and yet they pulled through that.
Yeah, and on a note about Jeff Jarrett, motherfuck Jeff Jarrett. Just the dude broke 1,000 guitars and couldn't draw on a dime. I never understood the appeal of Jeff Jarrett either, whether he was in WCW or not. But the storylines were like, I just remember so much of the bad. Like, do you remember Abyss?
Yes.
No.
Do you
who's
guys?
That?
He was Mankind.
Of course, I remember Abyss.
Okay, well, I've talked to a lot of people who actually don't know who I'm talking about, so pardon me. But there was this storyline where he was like, he was a face and he was teaming up with Hogan, and Hogan gave him like his
the magic
WWE ring. Yeah, the Green Lantern ring of power. and he would look at the ring and he'd go nuts. And I'm just like, man, what the fuck is going on? Or another storyline, Samoa Joe getting kidnapped by ninjas. Let's bring that up because I guess he had gotten injured, so they had tried to find a way to keep him off the show for a bit. He got kidnapped by ninjas. Then he came back and they never talked about it. And
That
then
is
fucking
ridiculous.
Taz is just like, hey, I called Samoa Joe. I called him at his house. I called him a week ago. Nobody's picked up. I ain't heard from him. And it's like, he just got kidnapped on live TV. Like
I don't
the
even remember the
Titantron show.
ninjas. I don't even remember the
They were
ninjas
like-
thing. That's like something you would make up when you couldn't, like if you're making fun of a bad movie. Like, and then the ninjas
no.
came down and. God.
No, it's literally true. It was four dudes
it
in
was-
ninja masks
And they were in,
and
no,
t-shirts.
It was t-shirts, ninja masks, and like cargo shorts. They pulled up in a van. They grabbed this big Samoan man and threw him in the back of the van. And it was like, whoa, what happened to Samoa Joe? It's like, he got kidnapped, fuckers.
For 2 seconds, I was just like, oh God, they're bringing back Muhammad Hassan.
Oh, that would have actually been good.
No, because
I
here's
would
the
have paid to see that. then.
Here's the thing, for the longest time, TNA was, literally where the action was. You have the X division who's tearing down the house. You have what one of the most arguably best tag team rosters in any company for the longest time.
Motor City Machine Guns,
Beer Money,
Oh,
Beer
God.
Money, Inc. You had Team 3D. You had so many great tag teams there, and then you also have quite possibly one of the best publicized and televised women's rosters. You had ODB, you had Gail Kim, you had Awesome Kong, you had you had, what was it?
Don't say Lacey Von Erich.
I was actually going to say Velvet Sky and Angelina.
And on that
Love.
note,
Okay.
the knockout division was giving him their best ratings for such a long time.
Yeah, it was like, oh man,
I didn't
remember
care.
loving their roster for that.
I didn't care who had the TNA title. I cared who had the TNA women's title. I cared who was going to get fed to Awesome Kong, who Gail Kim was going to make tap.
Or whoever ODB was gonna wreck
Pretty
that
much.
night, Yeah, like they had. It was so weird because they made such good decisions for like a short period of time, and then it's like, well, okay, Hogan's back, and we're taking away the 6-sided ring, and we're gonna bring you back to the 4-square ring, brother, and everyone's mad, and then you're just like, well, I mean, it seems like your fans are kind of not happy. But, all right, you guys can do what you want to do. They brought in Orlando Jordan, who, for all intents and purposes, he may not have been used all that well in SmackDown or Raw, but I mean, dude's still a good in-ring talent. What's his fucking gimmick? He's so over the top and gay that he makes Rico blush.
Well, bisexual, but yeah.
Yeah, you could call it that. I call it he was grinding up and down on the Pope and sucking lollipops.
Right. Hey, getting back to the whole Dixie Carter thing, I'll say this too. Again, trying to talk about things that aren't necessarily hearsay, but are a little bit more on the confirmed side. When things have been going south with TNA, the story is that Jeff Jarrett actually tried to buy the promotion back for this, basically make it this, and then what happened was one of the prerequisites that TNA under Dixie's rule had was if we're going to sell it, Dixie is still in a position of management, and he said nay. So that's why he kind of branched off and is now doing his own thing. Which we'll see.
Well, he
what
still
becomes of
owns
that.
a piece of TNA. He still owns 20% of TNA right now?
Almost 30.
Almost 30. And who else? Because I know the Carters, they sold it. Who's owning it now?
Panda Energy.
Yeah.
Panda Energy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Technically speaking, that is a Carter company, but they
Right,
don't have
exactly.
direct control over Panda
So they
Energy.
sold it to themselves,
Panda-
basically.
Yeah,
Pretty
no,
much.
okay. That's fucking weird.
Yeah, it's almost the equivalent of sucking your own dick while eating your own shit.
Yeah, that's fucking
Yeesh.
weird.
Quite the simile there, Jonathan.
Sorry. I've been watching a lot of old Comedy Central.
But quick
Fair
question,
enough.
you guys: do you think that TNA will get on another network, or will they?
That was
fizzle
just what
like
I was going to
ECW?
ask. Is yeah. God, I wanna. I hope so. I kind of wonder if, and if so, which one? One that comes to my mind, obviously, is one that tried the wrestling thing years ago and it didn't quite pan out, and that's MTV. I think that as low as the ratings are for a lot of their shows, the only thing of theirs that really spiked ratings would probably be, unfortunately, Jersey Shore, which is thankfully gone, and probably the reboot of Beavis and Butthead. But if they were looking for content that is, for the most part, low cost, and would, I think, appeal to that sort of audience, which is really just looking for something like, they'd have to change a number of things creatively because I can't sit there and say TNA is hip or cool the way they book it in such a Southern style. But I think that could possibly be a good fit.
I agree with you, especially since, like, yeah, you're right. Like, they're not drawing, like, the network, their network's not drawing in anything super, you know, they're not drawing in a lot of shit to write home about. And I think I would like to see TNA, I don't want to see them die just because of the simple fact that competition is always good. You know, it's always good to have multiple organizations. Like, the fact, like, when WCW and ECW folded, that was a really sad time just in general because now, you know, you got 40, 80 wrestlers, 90 wrestlers, and half of them probably aren't going to get picked up. And in TNA's case, you know, a lot of these guys aren't going to get picked up for
various reasons.
For WWE, and that's really sad, and that sucks. So I would like to see TNA still live, but yeah, I think that would be a good network for them. They're probably going to have to do a lot of restructuring when it comes to, you know, creative, when it comes to, you know, management and all that stuff, but I just hope that they come through this still kicking.
See, now here's the thing about
it was an alternative not just on a creative side of things, but especially on a creative on a schedule side of things. There were one of the big draws for some talent for working TNA was, yeah, you're going to take a huge pay cut if you're going from WWE to TNA, but you're not killing yourself as hard. You're not on the road nearly as much. And
yeah, you're not working 360 days out of a year or whatever it is.
Right. Kurt Angle, for all intents and purposes, should have retired around 2006. His neck was a stack of dimes. He was addicted to painkillers because, you know, working as hard as he did and having the schedule he did almost demanded it to an extent. But look at how much more longevity he gained by jumping ship at that time and working a lighter schedule, getting himself back into good health and such. And other performers who are beaten down or maybe just hate the travel but still have something of value to give to an audience.
Yeah, you look at guys like Christian, and he said he was offered, you're going to be working 4 days out of the month. The rest of the time is your own, you know, and he lives in Florida. Like, his house is not too far from where TNA tapes, so he could easily make the drive. You know, so of course, you know, the travel is a big thing for them. My only concern when it comes to them potentially moving to MTV is MTV's tried wrestling twice now. Are they really up for trying it a third time?
Do they really? Well, it's one of those things where what can MTV do now? I can't see them. Jersey Shore's rant, like, it's done. So and they had a spinoff show from Jersey Shore. It was Snooki and one other broad from that show, and it didn't pull any viewers in. It
didn't pull in. I think if anything, maybe another network might make it in, maybe like a TNT or TNN. Maybe if they're looking to go.
When you say twice, though, what did they try with wrestling outside of Wrestling Society X? I mean, I know they hosted a WWE halftime show during the Super Bowl, but.
Oh no! They actually they had a lucha show. They were trying to bring lucha into the mainstream. So they had lucha.
Snap.
They had Lucha USA for about a couple months, and then it just fizzled out and never went anywhere. They had big names down in Mexico and a couple recognizable guys here in the States, like Vampiro and Marco Corleone. Yeah.
Oh, sick.
What year?
So they had. This was I want to say 2012, 2011.
That just flew right under my radar.
It was one of those things that they didn't promote it well. Like, I saw maybe one commercial for it, and I tried to catch a couple episodes, but, you know, I'm sorry, but you're not promoting it well, you know.
Was it any good?
Yeah, they had some good matches. They actually brought in there's a whole division in Lucha Libre called the essentially, if you translate to English, it would be called the Extravagance. Essentially a whole division of guys who had the early gimmick of gold dust.
Huh.
Yeah. So, you know, they actually tried to bring that over here with a couple of big stars down there. It just kind of fizzled out and went nowhere. So are they willing to do it a third time? You know, where networks like TNN, TNT, they've tried wrestling before. It has been big successes. I believe one of the only reasons they never renewed with WWE was because, you know, I don't think they could afford them anymore. They couldn't give them the right kind of promotion, something along those lines. But yeah, WWE's found a home in USA anyway. So
I would wonder though, would would it be a case of they don't draw in enough that those two networks would be like, probably not. With MTV, I look at it as that network has kind of just been on a very slow sink. Well, for a while.
Well, here's the thing. It's also been noted, and I read this in an article recently, TNA's international TV deals can keep it afloat. They just wouldn't be able to, tour across the U.S. if that's the only thing they have going for them.
To be honest, they probably shouldn't. They probably really shouldn't.
I feel like if creative tweaks were made, the fact that they've had some modicum of success, like I said, at the height of their popularity, they hovered somewhere close to a million views per show. So I think that for some networks, that's not the most unsafe risk, especially because it's a brand that has a history to it, probably a pretty good sized tape library at this point. And yeah, while it's never going to be WWE, I don't think it would ever. It couldn't compete with WWE, at least under the creative direction that it had. I don't know, man. Maybe that's just the mark in me wanting to hope for the best. But I would think if there's got to be somebody out there that maybe would find that an appealing thing. I mean, I know they're in talks with Ring of Honor about possibly working with them more in some capacity, especially with the angles they've had with Matt Hardy. Time will tell, I suppose.
The one thing I would say though is I just really hope that they don't ever I'd rather they didn't try and directly compete head to head with WWE.
No, and if I can help squash a rumor, I really don't think they're not a big enough blip on the radar that I don't think you'll be seeing TNA on like the WWE network or anything like that anytime soon. Nor would they really have all that much to gain from it.
No, in fact, why Vince wouldn't even give a shit.
No. He'd buy it. Maybe they have a couple of good matches so that he can put on, say, a DVD of Christian, a DVD of Jeff Hardy if he ever makes good with the company again.
Yeah, I would say Jeff Hardy, Sting, and Kurt Angle. That's probably it as far as him drop what he would cut a check for.
Yeah, he would literally just go for the video library like he did with WCW, and he would just slap it on some DVDs and be done with it. Mm-hmm. He wouldn't even really pay too much attention to it.
Plus, you got to remember, there's other people trying to get what TNA had. Ring of Honor, I'm sure, is trying to branch out a little bit and maybe take that spot as far as being the second televised, nationally televised program. Tommy Dreamer's House of Hardcore, there's probably potential there for that to get on TV in some capacity. So they have some competition as far as being in the same sort of boat they're in with wanting to stay on TV because there's people trying to get on TV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Meanwhile,
No, go ahead.
Well, and meanwhile, WWE pumping out as much content as it does, especially with NXT and everything else. It's just, we'll see.
Well, that's also a question I wanted to bring up, kind of branching away from the TNA. How do you guys think WWE is going to handle the large money deficit that they're in right now? I mean, do you guys see bankruptcy in the future, or what do you guys see in terms of WWE?
I see things being scaled down. Obviously, I believe that the releases will continue. There's other cost-cutting measures that can be made. I mean, do they even really do pyro anymore at the shows?
A couple of guys have their pyros for their entrances, like
Look
a Kofi
how scaled down that is
King.
Compared to when everybody had at least some level of fireworks going on.
True enough.
I wonder if let's just go back to the territories, guys. Territories all day, every day.
No more Jim Crockett.
All NWA. Let's do it.
WWE trying to make up their losses. Cuts are going to be made. A lot of people are probably more people are going to lose their jobs.
Do you think they're going to cut the network?
The network, I think Vince is going to give it a little bit of a longer shot. Maybe reduce the price.
Well, you do know what they were doing for a brief period of time. They were it was like a free whole
and then people were cutting their subscription
like
after the week. Like they would watch their fill, download as much as they could, and then cut it.
Like people are unsubscribing and canceling their memberships before the 6-month mark, which means like they're hitting negative subscribers pretty much.
Yeah.
So
the only pay-per-view they really had that was still I don't know. I try to remember like all the math about how it works as far as like the cost versus what was bringing in. WrestleMania would bring in so much money because that was like the event that even casual fans still know about. But now that doesn't make as much because of the network thing. So the question has been like, has the WWE network scenario just killed off their own pay-per-view business? And there's some valid claims to be made for that.
Right. It was, I mean, the idea of it isn't the worst thing in the world. It was just that they didn't test it fully because, okay, fine, I get to watch the pay-per-views free, but like I could still watch the shows on TV. I would say if they had completely cut their network deals and made WWE a strictly live streaming thing that you could only watch in the network, that probably would have brought in a bunch more people because they're like, oh, well, I can't watch it any other way. And this is just a personal preference, but for me, getting the pay-per-views as a free deal isn't that great because the pay-per-views have been kind of crap. So, you know, it's like, great, I could have this steaming pile of shit for free, or I could just not eat it. You know, that's just kind of the way I look at it.
I disagree about getting rid of getting the TV shows off regular television entirely because you need that. We're still in an age where, while most people are moving over to streaming sort of things because you can have Network and Hulu Plus and WWE Network for still like less than a third of the cost of a $200 a month cable bill. There's still a lot of people that are on that. So to have something on there that as you're flipping channels and then there it is, it's another way of building more fans and basically
you're absolutely right. I'm saying
free advertising.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm saying it would have worked in like a dickish kind of way, like where, oh, now I have to buy the network instead of, you know, well, I have this network for reasons, I guess, you know.
It would have been a terrible because and you know you're able to sell advertising on if you're televised, I believe, better than if you're just streaming. But that's, I don't know.
But it's very apparent that both cannot really coexist, at least not and make lucrative amount of money.
Well, we're just in a weird age now, whereas the technology moves forward. You know, we're gradually going that direction where certain things are becoming obsolete. I mean, look at what it's done. Again, going back to the whole nerd thing that we're also kind of a part of. Look at what it's done. It's almost crippled the anime business because it's become so much easier to just not bootleg, but basically just steal it. Bandai, one of the most successful companies that, as far as American distribution of anime in the United States goes, years ago now, had to cut off their American distribution just to survive. So and over in Japan, there's companies, they're not really making any money. They're living on like rice just for the love of what they do. You know, so that's kind of the sort of in-between limbo-ish zone that we're in right now as far as TV versus streaming.
Right. But I think we need to be prepared for the inevitable future, which will pretty much be all online all the time.
Speaking of things that are a little bit on their way out, shall we say, can we move on to the other news story in the interest of time?
Sure. What you got, John? What you got, Jonathan?
Well, there's actually two. A short, quick announcement because he was talked about the last time John Allen was on the show. John Allen, one of your favorites, Drew McIntyre, has started wrestling again. He made an appearance at a house show over there in Glasgow, Scotland, his native land.
Awesome.
At a ICW house show. So it's really cool that he's back in the game. You know, good for Drew, good for him keeping on with his passion. You know, hopefully one day we will see him back in the WWE.
Or if not, let's see him in the SoCal indie shows, you know?
Yes.
That'd be awesome, too.
Sure.
Yeah. God willing, FUW.
God willing, FUW, right?
So, but no. One of the bigger stories, that would be awesome. One of the bigger stories broke not too long ago. JR has left WWE. less than amicably.
Amicably.
Yeah.
English is hard when you're a Latin heartthrob.
Yes, it is. See,
All right.
it's when your first language is the language of love, it's always difficult to speak. Yeah, JR has left WWE. He says there's going to be a couple of embarrassing stories in the book he's going to eventually write on, what came of how his final departure is and how there's a lot of speculation, a lot of rumors floating around. JR
Jonathan,
left it.
Quick
Go
question
ahead.
for you, and I mean this not as a slam on you, but I'm genuinely curious here. How is this news? And I ask that because of the fact that wasn't JR basically forced into retirement a year ago after the Ric Flair incident when they were promoting the video game? So how is this different now compared to him basically retiring, but most realize it was, a nice way of letting him go, basically forcing him into retirement because the blame from Ric Flair's appearance was all being lumped onto Ross?
Well, okay, you know what, John? You poached your question. Tea time with Body Slams. We debate each other.
Tea time with Body Slams.
No, again, I'm not debating him. I'm really I'm trying to get, for the benefit of our audience, I want to know the details of how this is different. Like, was it still, there was a chance of him being involved in wrestling, and now he said he's completely out for good, or what's the story there?
That's what it's sounding like to me, like he's completely out, like no ties, but I'm actually curious, and maybe you guys could clarify this again for me because I'm a little bit rusty on the Ric Flair story. Was that forced retirement, was that like, okay, look, we're forcing you to retire and we're pretty much asking you nicely to leave, but like, was it with the strings like, oh, maybe you could come back in a little bit of time when things blow over? Were they still, like, was he still on a payroll of some sorts? What was going on?
They officially parted ways. For the longest time, WWE has felt that he is not young enough and also not photogenic enough to be the face of, the voice of WWE, basically the head of their commentary team. So,
Okay.
but here's the problem with that. They can't find anybody to really replace him because he is just that damn good.
Well,
so WWE has gone back and forth firing him and rehiring him. The last bit, like John Allen said, they kind of forced his hand was because of the Ric Flair. It is news because now it's all kind of coming out of the floodgates. So
everything that may have had a gag order put on it is kind of coming out?
Pretty much. That's the news. That pretty much everything behind the scenes that JR was a part of, while minimal nowadays because he wasn't that big of a presence anymore. He wasn't the road agent. He wasn't looking out for talent anymore. Now it's coming to light, what he was really involved in. That's kind of why I see it as news.
Well, that's going to be a hell of a book, obviously, because he was such a victim of bullying, not just backstage, but on air for so many times. He was a sort of a go-to joke. Whenever
And it's
Vince
really
felt like
fucked.
he needed to be, well, whenever Vince felt he needed to be taken down a peg, he had, God, I almost said pig, that was awful. That he, they had no problem doing like the Dr. Cheeks bit or the Kiss My Ass Club or, God, having him even in a mixed tag match, the rap battle that he did.
Yeah.
So.
I find it funny though you said pig. I almost said pig. It's like, because I'm just thinking, for good barbecued hog, get JR Jim Ross's barbecue sauce. But
Right.
what I really think is fucked about how JR, all the bullshit he had to go through was just the simple fact that, without JR, a lot of wrestlers probably wouldn't have returned. I mean, let's also think about, JR breached the gap between the Austin McMahon dilemma when Austin refused to lose to Brock Lesnar during a King of the Ring qualifier match.
Yeah, go back even further and remember that he was responsible for a lot of top-name talents from WCW making the jump, like Ron Simmons, Vader. Facilitated a lot of that.
Yeah, so it's like, it's really fucked up to see what JR had to go through, and this guy has been absolutely critical to, WWE's growth to what they are now. I mean, being that, just territory-based company and then growing to pretty much like a gigantic corporation, you wouldn't have a lot of that without JR, and I think, he needs to be respected for that. And on a second note, it's like a face of what the face commentary. It's like, okay, I get that, fine, he's not young, but you know, you want imbecilic Michael Cole to be your go-to guy? Like, I don't even understand that choice at all either.
Yeah, no, the man has such a creative mind for the business to the point, and this helps connect us to what we were talking about with TNA, that when they were having their creative slump, there were two names that people would always mark for and hope that they would jump ship and go over there and try and fix things. One was Paul Heyman, and the other was Jim Ross. But Jim Ross, God, the loyalty from him, you know, company man through and through, despite all the crap that he'd been through. You know, on being on the receiving end of so many jokes, he was a WWE guy, and he would never entertain the thought of going over there. Although he did, like us, respect the fact that there was an alternative out there and another place for guys to work, because even with so many shows, there's just only so much room for so many talents.
Right. Well, you know what? The way I say to it, I can keep my fingers crossed for anything, because hell, we saw Sting come out of TNA to get hired on WWE, and nobody ever thought that would ever happen. So who knows? Maybe JR, you know, now that it's very obvious that him and WWE probably will never ever work together ever again, maybe he could give TNA a boost.
They might do like a Hall of Fame spot or something like that, but I doubt in any like major capacity he will ever be back.
Yeah, and you know what? Fucking, since we were talking about TNA, God sure used the boost.
They could.
Yeah, but they got to worry about like having a means. I don't know. That's sort of a chicken and the egg argument as far as like, do we get the network first, or do we bring on somebody with history in the business to, you know, to the point where people would give us another chance?
I would say get yourself a good team before trying to scout for a new network, so that networks aren't like, you know, nervous about you. You know what I mean?
Like,
I disagree. I feel that if there's that much of a gap, you know, if the show stops tomorrow and then they don't come back for a couple of months, there's a good chance that those fans will simply, you know, forget about it or maybe not come back. You're definitely going to have some drop-off. So I think consistency is key. They need to just make sure they can stay on the air in some capacity, but there's no reason to not at the same time also revamp your creative team and reboot yourself a little bit.
Right. All right, I think that's pretty safe amount of time we talked about that. Let's go to the FUW show.
Yes, indeed. The real news.
Yes.
Real news.
Yes. For the Gold, taking place Saturday, August 9th. Doors open at 7. Bell time is approximately around 8 p.m. We'll feature an 8-man elimination-style tournament to crown the first ever Fans United Heavyweight Champion. And some of the names confirmed already are Joey the Bone Barone, SoCal Crazy, Jacob the Riot Diaz, Shady, Matt Twisted, Damon Devine, and the massive Maldacito, with one spot still unannounced yet. Also on the card, to showcase some other talent that aren't in the tournament, a talent showcase battle royal consisting of over 10 men, and some of the names confirmed for that are Jimmy Ray Walker, Crazy Clown, Rasta Lion, Sea Love, Scorpio, Extreme Parka, Venom, Sean Black, Big Daddy Destro, Iron Butterfly, and still probably a few other names that'll be coming down the pike.
Awesome. So, as you guys have heard, on several episodes, we talked about a lot of these guys. So, there's no reason not to go. I mean, if you want an entertaining show, if you want a really large group of entertaining wrestlers who, leave it like blood, sweat, tears in the ring and really have honed their craft to almost perfection, then you guys need to get your asses down to FUW. You need to get your asses down to Skybox. It's going to be a fantastic night. And also, if you just want to have a couple drinks with the three of us, we'll be there.
We'll be there. There will be a square, but it will be the ring.
Yeah, and everything
totally worked.
That was the worst joke ever.
I've told worse. That's why I stopped doing stand-up. That's why only one of the Johns is a comedian. It ain't me.
Oh, you're right.
It's not me. Yeah. Definitely come down. Definitely.
I'm looking forward to it. The possibilities for who's going to be facing who. The brackets haven't been announced yet. As you know, obviously everybody's going to start in the first round, but so many potential possibilities for who could be facing who. Matchups that we've yet to see, matches that some people probably thought wouldn't be for several other shows are a possibility here. You could have, face versus face, heel versus heel, rematches.
Anything could happen at the FUW.
What?
I said anything could happen at the FUW.
That sounded more like Nixon and not enough like Vince.
Yeah.
The capacity crowd. Oh, no. Do you mean we can have tour guide Nixon promote this match? I say go down to the FUW.
They're down with the devil.
They're down with the devil, hence why they have Rasta Lion from Tijuana, Chalupa, Mexico,
Tokyo, Japan.
Tokyo, Japan,
Jamaica.
It's also neat that just about everybody kind of has some sort of story to tell going into this. You know, with SoCal Crazy, he's been such a mainstay in Southern California wrestling for so many times. I think in a lot of people's minds, he's one of the odds-on favorite to win. Joey the Bone Barone, very controversial, already carrying around a heavyweight title belt and believes he's already the champion. Jacob the Riot Diaz, is it his chance to move up to the next level in his career and be the face of a company? Shady, been at this years and years and years and never really had the chance to be, not really ever had a championship in his career.
Hey, man,
Matt
I'm rooting
Twisted.
for Vacant. Vacant, I think, is going to pull it. Because you know what? Vacant won the WWE title for a little bit when when Daniel Bryan had to lose it. So I think
You just
Vacant's
like
going to take
Vacant
this.
because it sounds like bacon. That's the only reason.
I think he does. I think he's a little hungry. We might need to make a run to Jack in the Box. Who knows? Hey, free plug to Jack in the Box. Free plug to the Skybox. Why not?
Why can't we just... I got a better
Free
idea.
plugs
We're going to plug
everywhere.
anything. We're going to plug the Lucha Libre Taco Shop.
Yes.
Because they've got good food, and they also helped house some of the wrestlers for an autograph signing once before.
Yes,
so you
indeed.
know what?
Yeah.
Go to there.
Go to them.
We're
Go
very
to them.
good. Fans United Wrestling and Lucha Libre Taco Shop, very, very good friends. They were actually dropped by to drop off some flyers and posters recently, and it's always good to, Jose Luis always takes really good care of me, so nothing but praise for them. Other people in the tournament, you got Mel DeCito, who...
He's a pro
and
at
some
stealing belts, man.
Yeah, and the largest man in this, so that he could literally just stomp over the competition. Matt Twisted, already a champion, the first champion in Fans United Wrestling, being the current reigning Nug Life champion. Could he walk away with 2 belts? And then, he's just had a fair amount of press on himself. Damon Devine, probably another favorite for a lot of people. He's going to be on Stone Cold Steve Austin's Broken Skull Challenge, so he's already got a lot of momentum going into this.
Yeah,
and then it comes down to who's the wild card, who's going to be the final person that fills the spot.
Vacant.
No, my money is Swerve. Bellagio Crescenzo comes in and takes the vacant
I
spot.
thought you were gonna say fucking Barone again. I was like, God damn it.
No, he's already in the tournament.
I know.
How can he fill the vacant spot?
Joey but the Bone Barone has 2 spots in the match. He got a bye.
No, you know what?
Wouldn't that be something?
when it comes to the tournament, I think I'm gonna go ahead and pick a dark horse. Not a lot of people may be rooting for him. I'm gonna go ahead and pick Maldacito for this.
That's who you're wagering your bets on?
I'll go with Maldacito on this one. In the clutch, he already stole 1 championship. He could legitimately win this one, and not many people can match his power in the ring, and for a big guy, he can move. I'm gonna go for Maldacito. What about you, Justin?
I'm going to hedge my bets on Jacob. I mean, that dude's got to have a fire under his ass after that crushing defeat from B-Boys. So that dude's probably going to be in it to win it. And you know what? I'm going to see him taking it the whole way. That's my vote right there. He's in my fave 5. He's in my fave 5.
You got a strong argument for Maldacito there, because the argument could be made that at Skybox Mania, Matt Twisted barely slipped by him, and he had weapons in that match to help. And then at Phantomonium, that was a triple threat, so he had to get by 2 guys, and it was, you can lose that match without even being the guy who gets pinned. So
yeah, and he wasn't pinned.
So there's that.
There is that, and I think intern Erin's over there signaling. I think she's going for. She votes for Shady. Good job,
Shady.
intern Erin. Go get me my Tootsie Rolls.
And intern Joe votes for Daniel Bryan, who was just there.
That's not even an option. But
He was
okay.
just there. Hey, you never know who will be in the vacant spot.
No. Intern Joe for Damon Devine.
What's fucked up is the interns aren't even here. You're just fucking everything. I don't
You're
care
just
if I
speaking
broke
on
the
their
fourth
behalf
wall.
at this point.
Breaking kayfabe, you
I
shitbag.
broke all the kayfabe right here, man. Fuck you. They're not in my room right now.
They should be. They're here in our hearts.
Anyway, yeah. So, anything else we won't bring up before we sign this sucker out?
On behalf of Fans United, I would probably just say, hey, if you haven't liked us yet on Facebook or subscribed to us on Twitter, we'd love it if you would. That helps us make sure that we can keep you in the loop as far as what's going on with our shows and such. We try to put out some content at least every other day. So that's facebook.com/FU Wrestling. And on Twitter, our handle is @FUWrestlingCA. So, why not?
Yeah,
Take
and
a
then
second out of your day.
also, when you guys go to the show, because you love it so much, buy yourself a t-shirt. Enjoy some of this merch. Man, these FUW shirts, they're so fantastic. You can wear them everywhere. You can wear them around the house. You can wear them to a show. I even work out in mine. So I think it's fantastic.
There you fantastic. I like that. Ooh. Patent pending.
Patent pending. Patent pending.
So, yeah, and you know what? That's all we got for the time for today. If also you guys want to do anything else besides checking out FUW, check out, John Allen Comedy?
JohnAllenComedy.com, yeah.
Yeah, check
got
out
a couple of dates coming
JohnAllenComedy.com.
up. Yeah, I'll be at the Madhouse. It looks like the night before For the Gold, and I'm going to be doing in October. I know this is ways out, but I'm doing a weekend at Legends Comedy Club, and we got a few other shows coming up as well. So by all means, check it out.
And check out Tea Time with Bodyslams. Check us out on Facebook and on Twitter as well.
And on YouTube, of
And
course.
on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. And you know what? Have yourselves a wonderful day, ladies and gentlemen. I better see you there at FUW. If not, I'm going to kick some fucking asses.
I know Hulk Hogan now.
Yeah, he knows Hulk Hogan.
He knows Hogan.
Yeah.
You know what,
Best
John? You
day
wear your
ever.
Guess what? Justin will kick your asses. I'll steal your girlfriends. That's the way it is. That's the way it's gonna be.
And hey, guys, you know what? There also might be a celebrity in the house that night. I know a guy who happens to know a guy who knows Carlito Caribbean Cool. So he might be in the house. So if you guys want to see wrestling royalty and celebrities, you guys should totally go. Why are you laughing, John? Why are you guys laughing?
We shall see who's on there. Even the interns who aren't here are laughing.
They're
all
is
getting
everyone,
us food.
But I know them. I know the guy who knows the guy. It'll be great. But anyway, we'll see you guys at FUW. This is episode 14. No, 15. 15. Episode 15 of Tea Time with Bodyslams. Peace.
Later.
Have a good night now.
Tea Time with Bodyslams.